How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this last week of summer session. You guys made it through 6 weeks, world history, from the beginning, from the Big Bang to 1500. So, yeah, hopefully you've learned a little more about world history. Hopefully you kind of understand, at least up to 1500, how traditions, societies, religions were formed, came about, moved around the globe as well. I know the 6 weeks it's kind of a little bit condensed, but I think on the one hand it kind of allows those connections to be made. So ideally, the whole point of this class is to walk away, with a little bit better understanding of why the world is the way it is, and how humans got to where they are, and some of the sort of traditions behind them. So that's kind of the hopefully you did. Hopefully, if you did, then your grade will reflect it, and you can go on about your summer. And then maybe 5 years from now, on some trivia night, you'll be like, "Hey, wait, I remember that from world history." So, excellent. This week, there's two assignments this week. First one is discussion post 4, I think it is. Just double check here. And this is more of discussion post 4, and this is more of sort of overview, historical overview, summary. What I want you to do is pick a region of world history and then talk about it, kind of work your way up chronologically. Where did it come from? What was there before? I mean, you can start in early civilizations or Neolithic. For example, I use Japan, so you would start with the Jolman period, work your way up to 1500, right? That's as far as this class goes. So I don't need up to contemporary world. In fact, don't cut it at 1500. But don't just talk about it in the past either. Don't just write about Egypt and then leave it. I mean, if you start with Egypt and say what it was, and then Egypt played a major role in the Roman Empire, became very much intertwined into Islamic worlds as well. So so you can connect all of those things together. And I'll let you choose any topic. I don't want to I want it to be just pick something you're a little more interested in. I want you to use one primary source, so that could be like an artifact, architecture, text, oral or written, anything like that that you might want. And then at least 2 references to course materials, whether those be lectures or readings, interactives, videos we've watched. Just 2 of those. I mean, if you just plug in AI and let AI do it for you, you're going to come up, it's going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that we never really discussed in class. So, make sure that it's things that relate, and cite where those come from, what lesson they're from, what reading they're from. I try to do that in the Japan example there a little bit. You don't have to give the timestamp from the lecture. I made the lectures. I'm pretty aware of what information's there. So if you're related to there, again, but if you talk about something else and then just say, "Oh, this was in the lecture," and I'm I don't remember talking about that. That's, this is an example to sort of show what you've learned over the course of the semester. So do that. And then the last one, that's due today at 4, 2 responses by Thursday, and then the final exam is due. Is available Friday from 8 a.m. till Saturday. Anytime you want to take it there, it's 2 hours. If I understand, Saturday is a holiday, 4th of July. So if you can get everything done on the 3rd, that'd be great for you and me. I do want to reiterate or iterate that I got to get these grades turned around really fast. So if you miss the quiz, the final exam, there's very little I can do for you. I'm trying to get these done by Sunday, get all the grading done, everything in on Sunday, so that I can also kind of move on with my summer as well. So if you have things that aren't turned in, that's just the way it's going to be. So, or if you missed the quiz for some reason, or the final exam, I mean, if I can't promise that I'll be able to help you make that up. So just get it all done. It's pretty straightforward. The first few sections you're familiar with, maps, fill in the blank, matching. 5 W's. I've given you a list of topics that might be the 5 W's, so study those a little more extensively. I'll pick 7 of those. You answer 4 of them. So it kind of narrows it down a little bit. The last section is a little bit longer essay, so just kind of explain I'm going to give you terms from the review guide to incorporate into those. Make sure you're adding like historical context of these terms. Who, what, where, when's. Put those in as you answer these questions as well. So that's the last two assignments. The last little bit of information here. We talked about nomadic peoples, groups that we've met before in this class, but now kind of particularly with the Mongol Empire, sort of the one nomadic empire of the world. Well, there's been other nomadic empires, the Turks we talked about, Ottomans could be. But a lot of these transition from nomadic societies to imperial worlds. We also talked about maritime nomads, sometimes called pirates. The Vikings would sometimes be applied to that as people who moved out for various reasons, which kind of gets us, before we get the idea of the Mongols. Yes, they did, and there's a video there that sort of explains sort of the historical one about the history of the Mongols from the perspective of Mongolians themselves, which I think is really interesting. It's the first video, like the first 20 minutes of that is really good. There's another one that sort of talks about a lot of the records we have of Genghis Khan are from people outside of the Mongols who looked at them as these ruthless barbarians, but they really were just doing what everybody else did, and and they created this vast empire that really allowed the really sort of unified the Silk Road. These area of Marco Polo, Ibn Battuta, these which talked about in the last sort of lecture there, allowed the movements of people. They even had a early passport system there. Then we talked about European states, sort of the Holy Roman Empire after the decline of the Romans. Connection with the church as well, and then the Vikings kind of disrupt all that, as we talked about. And then these monarchies emerge, something that we kind of see today. Places like France, England, the Normans come into. The Normans were originally Vikings who settled in northern France and then invaded England and brought, this French and mixed with Germanic, and that's the language of English, comes out of this mixture of Anglo-Saxons and Germanic peoples and French peoples that are all kind of mixed together up there. And then the Crusades. We talked about cathedrals. I gave some examples same as Southeast Asia, South and Southeast Asia temples as indicators of monarchical worlds or kingdoms. Same thing happens in Europe, right? That you have these cathedrals as the examples of people able to harness these products, materials, human and raw materials, resources. And then Crusades is an example of sort of this re-emergence of Western Europe into the global stage as it tries to kind of integrate itself back in the Middle East, particularly through Jerusalem, religion, all of that. Now we know where these global religions come from and how they are both cultural and political. And then the last part, sort of review. The last lecture there kind of reviews the last 500 years, just to put it in some historical context. But the big thing here is the big Black Plague, which is seen very as a sort of dramatic shift in history, right? That there's sort of Black Plague affected all from China to Europe, and then building out of that, right? Kind of the Ming Dynasty, this cultural revival in China, and then sort of this Iberian that sparks the Renaissance, which then sparks sort of revival of Europe, and then ultimately a maritime expansion, which is on the cusp of 1500s, where we end the class. So I think that's all the topics. A lot to cover this week. But again, get through those and then kind of reflect on what do you think is what are your reflections? Pick a region and go with it. I think that's it. Have a good rest of your summer.